Imagine you're a civilian in a nation occupied by a foreign power. While you do have the option to pick up arms and storm off into battle Red Dawn style, there is another option, one that was suggested in an instruction manual that was declassified by the CIA. Become the most annoying pain in the ass possible. Simple sabotage. Not everyone has the capacity to blow up a bridge or assassinate a general, but everyone can be annoying. I'm King Trout, and an uncontacted cannibalistic tribe that lives on an island near Papua New Guinea worships me as their deity. The document we're talking about today was a short manual released in January of 1944 by the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which basically later evolved into the CIA, called the Simple Sabotage Field Manual. The manual was meant to teach ordinary people in occupied countries small, non-violent ways to really throw a wrench in the gears of the enemy's war effort. What's unique about this manual is that it explores a concept that really hadn't been explored prior to. It relies upon human psychology. The manual argues that humans are creatures of habit. They follow policy, they respect hierarchy, and they fear blame. And all of those things can be used against them. The manual encourages something it calls purposeful stupidity. Seemingly innocuous actions that, when applied cumulatively, stall the hell out of the war effort. A driver who accidentally gets lost. A clerk who moves a little bit too slow pushing those papers. Or a supervisor who talks way too much. All become weapons. Why am I sharing with you information discussed in an 81-year-old pamphlet? Well, because A, I read it and it's really funny, and B, it's full of potentially useful information that I had never really thought about. The manual's goal was to teach simple sabotage, obviously, which was the term that they used to describe teeny tiny little acts that, when multiplied by many people, completely mire up any functioning system. It covers everything from factories to power plants to office buildings, and was distributed to OSS agents in Axis-occupied territories as a means by which to throw a billion tiny wrenches into the gears of the Axis war machine. In general, it basically teaches you how to be the absolute worst person at your job. It opens up by acknowledging that while there are slightly more aggressive forms of sabotage, and those do have their place from time to time, generally speaking, if you get caught performing those acts, the punishment is to face the wall. But if you get caught performing the acts suggested in simple sabotage, the punishment is more than likely you'll get written up at work. And both are detrimental to the occupier's war effort. The manual kind of breaks down what you can do job by job or industry by industry, but has a lot of recurring themes. The overall goal being to basically be as unproductive and counterproductive as you possibly can be. When it comes to industry or factory work in general, it has some recurring themes. Let your tools go dull so that your work is less efficient. Work slower in general. Don't teach new people how to do the job properly. Improperly maintain equipment so it gets gummed up and breaks down more often. The manual brings up a very good point when it comes to working in an industry that is helping to supply the war effort of this occupying force. So, popping a tire on a military vehicle, while inconvenient for that military, doesn't do nearly the damage of one factory worker f***ing up the entire supply of rubber that they're using to make their tires. Something that can be done on accident. You didn't mean to. I just made an oopsie at the rubber factory, and now that military doesn't have any tires. Yeah, the section applying to workers in factories or in industries that are helping to provide supplies to the occupying force are basically to be so bad at your job that it slows down production or screws up the final product, which inhibits the war effort. This is also the section of the pamphlet where it gives detailed instructions on how to get away with arson. So there's that. Some of the other suggestions for acts of simple sabotage in this part of the pamphlet are things like sprinkling dirt into mechanical equipment to cause failures, or something as simple as constantly dropping your tools while working.
Oops, my hammer.
It seems so insignificant, but again, the thought is, if many people are constantly dropping their tools, the amount of time that's been wasted and productivity that's been lost is huge.
Huge!
While incredibly useful in slowing down the productivity of the enemy's war effort, the section about what to do if you work in, a manufacturing industry isn't the funny part. The funny part of this pamphlet is the suggestions for when you're an office worker or just in daily civilian life under an occupying power. The pamphlet suggests that you insist on doing everything through channels. Never take any shortcuts. For example, if there used to be a two-step process that used to take 5 minutes prior to the enemy occupier's arrival, not anymore. No. We need to make sure that Mark from accounting has approved this purchase order. It cannot go through until Mark from accounting sees it. It suggests you refer all matters to committees for decision. These decisions can't be made by one individual. No, we need to have a task force work on this with weekly meetings. Anything to suck up as much time as possible. It suggests you frequently make speeches and talk as often as is possible. Share anecdotes that are completely unnecessary and irrelevant to what's being discussed. Maybe this work could have been achieved in a 2-sentence memo. No, not today. Today we're going to hear a 15-minute speech about how important our company's values are. It suggests you constantly bring up petty personal complaints and demand they become managerial crises. Somebody borrowed your stapler without asking? Well, you could brush that off as a minor inconvenience and go back to work. Or you could go to HR and demand a policy review when it comes to touching others' personal property.
Yeah, I believe you have my stapler.
It suggests, if you work in a managerial capacity, to discriminate against efficient workers and promote the incompetent. Promote the guy who talks way too much and schedules far too many meetings. Not only will this slow down everybody else's productivity, it will also lower the morale of people who are actually working hard, because that guy got the promotion. It suggests you develop unnecessarily complicated policies and demand they be followed to the letter. You mess up one step, back to the beginning. Do it all over again. Again, it's basically a manual to be the worst possible employee ever and to slow down production in any way, shape, or form possible. Time is an incredibly valuable resource, and you can take that from them with a thick layer of plausible deniability. The manual also gives suggestions for acts of simple sabotage in your day-to-day life as a civilian. While this section does include some physical acts of sabotage, such as dropping nails in the street or downing power lines and telephone lines, pouring sugar into the gas cans of enemy vehicles, switching street signs to confuse them, it's primarily psychological. Your nation is currently being occupied by an enemy invader. You want to make that as annoying as possible for them. It suggests a few things anyone can do. For example, if a member of the occupying forces approaches you and asks for directions, just confidently give them incorrect directions. Dice que si hablas otra idioma, mantener que no comprendas. It suggests that you repeatedly ask for clarification on even the simplest of orders given. So you want me to stand over there? Okay, but so do you want my hands like up when I do it, or do you just want me to walk over there? Okay, like right here. Is that what you're? I don't want to upset you. I just want to make sure that that's what we're talking about. Me? Okay, so you're telling me to walk over there. And then again, hand situation, up, down. You don't care? You don't care? Okay, but over here? See how annoying that is? A few of the funnier, in my opinion, suggestions recommended in the manual include calling the bureaucratic offices of the occupying force once a day, every day, and keeping them on the phone for as long as you can before they realize you're just wasting their time, and then apologize profusely for the call, again, to take up more of their time and then hang up. Just do that once a day, every day. It recommends if you're at a rally or propaganda film for the occupying power, everyone cheer and clap so loudly it drowns out the audio of whatever message you're supposed to be hearing. Plus, you get the plausible deniability of supporting the team. It recommends if a group of the occupiers enters a restaurant or cafe, everyone in that restaurant or cafe go silent. A, because it makes people incredibly uncomfortable. B, it ain't illegal to be quiet. And C, it makes it very easy to spy on them. It also suggests, at any possible opportunity when given orders by the occupying force, to break down into uncontrollable weeping. Literally anything to slow down the efficiency of getting anything done. So how much damage did this thing actually do? That's hard to say. The OSS translated it into multiple languages and distributed copies across Axis-occupied Europe. Railway workers used it to misroute shipments, slow trains, and ruin timetables. And factory workers would sometimes accidentally mismanufacture weapons or place the wrong parts together. Oops. The beauty of it was that nobody could prove intent. The Axis just thought they were dealing with a workforce full of morons. Which, if you've ever had a job, you'll know that there are plenty of people who do these things completely unintentionally anyway. Fast forward to today. The Harvard Business Review and MIT Sloan actually review this document as a managerial case study. They call it accidental self-sabotage. Granted, they're using the document in the reverse to attempt to streamline processes and make everything flow as smoothly as is possible, which was not the intent of the manual. So my question is, would it still work today? No, I genuinely think it would. Granted, America hasn't really been in a situation like that in about 250 years, but stranger things have happened. In a hypothetical, obviously, Red Dawn-esque scenario, I think most people have main character syndrome and like to imagine themselves as, Patrick Swayze, Wolverines, hiding in the mountains. They're gonna grab a gun and take on the invaders. It's not always practical, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's a very easy way to get yourself killed. But time is a very, very valuable resource, and it is incredibly easy to waste. Playing dumb and being terrible at your job could potentially cause far greater damage to your enemy's war effort than simply grabbing a gun and taking them on head on. The Simple Sabotage Field Manual was declassified by the CIA in 2008. It's publicly available online as a PDF. I'll link it in the description below. It's worth the read. It's only about 30 pages. I can't really envision a scenario wherein the United States is occupied by an enemy force. Probably would be turned to nuclear ash prior to that, but, the threat always could come from within. For legal reasons, don't do anything that is listed in that manual I just told you to read. It's just some information that may become valuable if, something crazy happened. Just saying. And remember, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. Anyway, as always, I've been King Trout. I'll see you when I see you. Love you. Bye.